Aloha mai. My name is Nalani Minton. I'm an assistant professor at the UH Manoa at the School of Nursing, and I'm the director of 2 programs for Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander students. Today we begin a series of the Kuali'i Council-sponsored programs for Native Hawaiians and at Manoa, and we want to introduce the leaders and founders of Kuali'i Council, as well as over the next few months we'll be presenting over 20 different programs that have benefited from the advocacy of Kuali'i Council. As a program director myself, I have benefited so much, and our students enormously, from all the support of Kuali'i Council at our school. And I've gone from being the first Native Hawaiian hired and tenured at the school in its 80-year history to having graduated 332 Native nurses as of this year. So we're really proud that the University at Manoa has become an inspirational place for Native Hawaiians, with many Native Hawaiian faculty and advisors, administrators, and students working together to create an Indigenous serving university and a Native Hawaiian place of learning. And in this series, we'll be presenting many different forms of how in different programs this is being realized. We're very excited about it, and Punihei and I will be co-hosting. These programs are part of a social justice initiative that was started, and we'll hear the history of that, in order for Native Hawaiians to feel at home in our own homeland. So Punihei, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Aloha mai kākou e nā kini nā mamo mai Hawaii nui a kia awea I ni hau ka helelani. Aloha, my name is Ka'iwi Puni, Koika Vekiu Life, although most people call me Punihei. I'm now a Native Hawaiian Affairs Specialist here at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, but I also got an undergraduate degree from the University in Hawaiian Studies and also a PhD in Education Administration from the College of Education. So I'm a proud alumni of UH Manoa and now working here full-time. And I am the co-host along with Nalani, as she said, and we'll be interviewing and talking story with folks who are running Native Hawaiian programs across the campus over the next several months. Today, we'd like to introduce our 2 special guests. First, Dr. Kame'ele Hiva, who is the director of Kamakakuakalani Center for Hawaiian Studies. She's also the founder of Kuali'i Council, of which we'll be talking about today. And also here is Kiali'i Olu'olugora, who is the administrator for the Puko'a and Kuali'i Councils, and so integral to everything that we do with Kuali'i Council. So welcome to both of you.
Mahalo for having us.
Mahalo. So today we're going to be talking about University of Hawaii at Manoa in particular, and Kuali'i Council and Native Hawaiian programs that exist. And some of the common terms that have started to become kind of heard everywhere on campus now, Native Hawaiian place of learning and Indigenous serving institution, right? These are 2 things that are kind of foundational to all the work that we do in policy language at the university now. It is our goal to become a Hawaiian place of learning at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. But where do these terms come from? I think it's important for our own community, the community at large, to really understand where do these terms come from, how are they connected to what's happening nationally and internationally with Indigenous peoples. So if you want to talk a little bit about that, that'd be really helpful.
Glad to chime in on that. So,
Mahalo.
These terms are basically enunciated in the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Mm-hmm. This document was in the drafting stages for quite a period of time. And first it started out in 1993, where we were addressing this one critical article, and that is Article 3. Okay. And it's pretty much relating to self-determination. And basically what the article is saying is that Indigenous peoples have the right to self-determination, and by virtue of that right, they can freely determine their political status and freely pursue their social, economic, and cultural development. Okay. Now, self-determination is important, but also peoples with an S is important because it refers to collective rights.
If we could get Article 3 up and we can show that.
Yeah,
language.
Why don't we go ahead and show that Article 3? Because I think when we're looking at international initiatives, especially because the United States of America just recently adopted this declaration, so now this becomes customary international law. Okay. So what that does, it allows like many of the law schools throughout America to start teaching it, to start discussing it, and even, calling upon states to, effectuate these kinds of measures as it relates to self-determination. There's another article that we think is really, really paramount. And in fact, the next 3 articles deal with education. So if we could, kind of talk about Article 13, we think that's a really good piece of, initiatives. And basically it talks about the right for Indigenous peoples to revitalize and to use and to transmit, our native language that we think are really essential in that learning. Language is the enabler of our culture. It really helps us ground us. It gives us all the things, the stories of our kupuna, and it helps us use those stories to make good decisions for the future. Yes, so, this article says on Indigenous peoples have the right to revitalize, use, develop, and transmit to future generations their histories, languages, oral traditions, philosophies, writing systems, and literatures, and to designate and retain their own names for communities, places, and persons. And I think what's also important is it's not only declaring this, but it's actually calling upon states to take effective measures to do just that. And I think that's really important that the state, should protect Hawaiian language. It should protect our culture. They have that kuleana, and I think that's also very descriptive in Article 13.
One of the things that's really important about the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples is that it created a new standard in international law for Indigenous peoples. So it's really a human rights context that had neglected the rights of Indigenous peoples until it was passed in 2007.
2007.
And one interesting aspect from Hawaii'ne is that the tribunal was held in 1993, convened by my uncle, Dr. Kekuni Blaisdell. And within that tribunal, we brought a lot of international law experts to review all of the issues and concerns that we had with the disruption of our self-determination and sovereignty and our inherent rights. And so in 1993, the Public Law 103-150 was also created as the first law that acknowledges the wrongdoings of the United States government in the overthrow of our rightful nation. And in that document, it states, much like the reflection of the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, whereas the Native Hawaiian people are determined to preserve, develop, and transmit to future generations their ancestral territory, their cultural integrity, in accordance with their own spiritual and traditional beliefs, customs, practices, language, and social institutions. So when we went to the drafting meetings in UN Geneva for 10 years during the decade of Indigenous peoples, the public law went with us. And it was one of the first times that Indigenous peoples had seen that a superpower can apologize to Indigenous peoples and not only acknowledge inherent sovereignty and rights of self-determination, but in 4 pages tell about the illegal acts that were committed against us. So I think the paradigm shifts are becoming more evident and are giving more support to Indigenous peoples globally, because as we see on the international level, there's the declaration. On the U.S. national level, there's the apology. And in Hawaii'ne and at the University of Manoa, Indigenous peoples, Native Hawaiians, or Kanaka Maoli, Kanaka Oiwi, are organizing ourselves around our communities and families and our future generations.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
There's 2 more articles. Did you want to quickly mention those other ones that really pertain to education?
Yes, so we have the next article is Article 14. And basically, this one is an article that relates to Indigenous people's rights to establish and control, their own educational system. And I think that's important because what we've seen in Hawaii, especially for our Lahui Oiwi, is that we're having immersion programs. You're seeing the Punanaleo programs. You're seeing the Kaiapuni. You're here at the university. I mean, thousands of people are taking Hawaiian language and Hawaiian culture. And so that's that follow-up to this article. And again, the states will take effective measures to ensure that the indigenous peoples, as well as the states, protect language again. And then they also would allow access so that Native Hawaiians can pursue that right to education in their own mother's tongue. And I think that's really critical.
And what about Article 15?
Yeah, Article 15 deals with dignity and diversity.
Okay.
And I think that's a really important one. So if I go ahead and, let me go ahead and read that to you. So Indigenous peoples have the right to the dignity and diversity of their cultures, traditions, histories, and aspirations, which shall be appropriately reflected in education and public information. This part, which I think the second part is, again, the state is now, being asked to, okay, we're going to take on these measures to actually combat prejudice and to eliminate this any forms of discrimination. So I think this is really important that, we have this particular article in there to ensure that our language lives on forever and ever.
Absolutely. So what I hear is there are these documents, there are these policies, both internationally and then we have nationally in terms of the U.S. government with this recognition. But how was that, if you could speak a little bit, perhaps Dr. Kuali'i, about how these documents were used to inform what's happening here at UH Manoa?
Well, as soon as we decided we should make a council, we started to think about how can we influence the university administration. And one way is to just inform them and to send them. So we sent them copies of the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples even before it was passed. We sent the draft. This is what's coming. This is what you have to look forward to. And of course, we already had the apology law, so we were sending that along to them. And we're saying, how can we work with you on these things? And so I think it was important for people like the Vice President for Academic Affairs, Linda Johnsrud, to see that this is now becoming a standard across the world. Now every country has signed off an agreement on the Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples. So that's a wonderful thing. That's a very positive thing. Now it's no longer, well, they don't exist or you don't have rights. Now it's, here's the rights. Everyone's agreed to it. And so I'm really proud that Linda Johnsrud, went forward and advocated for the University of Hawaii to be an Indigenous place of learning. And it's really
And
wonderful.
that actually came out too when she was putting together the strategic plan and strategic outcomes and performance measures. And so that was really clearly enunciated in that particular document. And so when you have these type of the strategic plan from the system level, which is passed by the University Board of Regents, what it does is it really lends a support so that all the 10 campuses now need to implement their support to ensure that Native Hawaiians are successful, the right to practice their language, to have this kind of place of learning, and so that this is truly going to be an educational capital of the state.
I want to point out that the University of Hawaii is one of the first universities in the world to declare itself as an Indigenous serving university, to make that strategic outcome number one. And I thought that was quite a miracle. Really, so I wanted to thank Linda for helping with that, and President McLean for helping with that, because that was a large shift. When you're talking about shift, great ideas at universities, and people who are used to looking at great ideas, they can shift the way we do things in the world. It's wonderful. Good.
It's also a way for us to integrate our own cultural identity into the UH system. So in the 10 campuses, with all of the councils, which we'll learn a little bit more about later, having their own representatives, and us being able to communicate with the deans and the chancellors and the president on a monthly basis, then we're able to help the integration process take place on a cultural level as well as on an academic level.
And so, what's great about this is what we have now in terms of this paradigm shift, right, is this language, this policy language, really powerful policy language that's helping to direct our path as an institution, as a system. And in particular, this idea of a Native Hawaiian place of learning, which in a way is a new concept. It's new language that wasn't here in the university 20 years ago. But if we think about Manoa, right, this beautiful land in which the university is situated, we have to remember, we are taught, right, in our University of Hawaii Hawaiian Studies programs, we are taught as we learn to Malama Aina to remember that actually Manoa has always been a Hawaiian place of learning. If we think about this aina of Manoa, right, the valley of Manoa, this ili, this watershed, and to think about that is the greatest model that we can look to. That actually what we're doing is trying to make UH Manoa back into a Hawaiian place of learning like Manoa has always been. And I was wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about that, Dr. Kumeile Hiva, about the research you've done, the research a lot of Hawaiians have been doing about understanding how amazing Manoa has been as a place of abundance, as a place of Hawaiian learning from the time of our ancestors.
Well, I remember when you first talked to me about that, I said, really, a Hawaiian place of learning? Manoa? That hasn't been. But actually, that was my work. It was my research, and that's been researched by so many people. I wonder if we could have the map of the Lo'i. Which map is that?
I got it.
Okay. If we could put that up, because I'd like to speak to that map.
The Waikiki.
The Waikiki, that's slide number 6, yes. So as you look at this map, you say, well, there's a lot of dark lines. Those lines are all waterways. Those are Auai. That is Waikiki. It is now Mo'ili'ili and Lower Manoa, full of lo'i. Look at all of the lo'i. You can just imagine the taro waving in the breeze. And then as you go down towards the shoreline, there are fish ponds. Now you can't see the fish ponds too well on this one.
Next slide.
The next slide, I think you can see, those fish ponds are actually 6 fish ponds right by Puck's Alley. These are all inland fish ponds. They're freshwater ponds. And they filled them in when they put in University Avenue. But they were connected underground to the reef, and reef fish used to swim up in them. So we had fish ponds, we had taro. In fact, the island of Oahu has so much fresh water. We had 113 fish ponds, make 4,200 acres of pond, making about 1.3 million pounds of fish just on the land. And a lot of that was in Waikiki. So we had the lo'i, we had the fish ponds. Up in Puck's Alley area, we had down by the Willows, there were a lot of fish ponds. Down by the ocean, there were fish ponds. And actually, these were all inland ponds.
Yeah.
Yeah, so lots of food and really brilliant ways of using fresh water on the land. Because with a taro garden, with wetland taro, you can make 10 to 15 times more food per acre than dryland taro. So wetland, using the water, this is a great engineering feat, and it's a great way to make more food. Fish ponds, of course, are the best way to make protein. Of course, you did a lot of film on that, so you know about these things.
As a cultural documentary filmmaker on Ahupua'a knowledge, it's really astounding when you see not only what was created, but that it's really a model of peace. Because when everyone has enough to eat, when there is abundance, when everybody is involved in contributing and helping, in all of the work that needs to be done to create a water system and a food system that feeds everyone within that ahupua'a, and this is being done in every ahupua'a that exists, then you have a kind of peace that can't exist without that abundance.
When you have a full opu, you're joyful. This is good.
Absolutely. And so what I hear, when we think about the research on what was developed in the ahupua'a of Waikiki and then specifically in Manoa, and the way you're talking about these amazing engineering feats, right? Is that really, this was a place where we were teaching and learning, practicing engineering, water resource management, right? Food production, agriculture, all of these STEM areas that we talk about today for hundreds and hundreds of years that fed our people. And that's why we always know that Manoa was one of the favorite places of the ali'i, right? Because it could feed our people. And so that, to me, when I hear that, I think that's such a great model for how we can imagine what a Native Hawaiian place of learning, the University of Hawaii at Manoa, can actually be, right? A place where we feed our people and that we are in constant reciprocation with our people.
So we're feeding them for food sustainability, but we're also feeding their minds and growing their imagination.
Absolutely.
And there's so many wonderful things that ancestral knowledge can teach all of us today. Now that we have the newspapers digitized, we've got 1 million more pages to read. We have so many things to do and learn. It's a perfect time for Native Hawaiians to come to University of Hawaii at Manoa and explore all of the wisdom of the ancestors.
Absolutely. And as we think about, okay, so if we go back, now we're talking about this traditional time in a sense, not 50 years ago, but more like 150, 200 years ago when we were actually using this place to provide food for our people. Then we fast forward a little bit to 1907, right? And the University of Hawaii Manoa is built. And for the most part, over the next, several decades, very little Hawaiian stuff happening on campus, right? Different times, right? We're transitioning into a different period. Not too many Hawaiian students, not too many Hawaiian faculty administration, not too much curriculum. However, in 1986, the small group of Hawaiians who did exist at Manoa and then across the system as well, a very small handful, come together and something called the Kualii Task Force is collectively created. Can you talk about that and explain to us what is happening in 1986 that is so different than what is happening from 1907 forward?
Well, there was a wonderful man who happened to be the vice president for academic affairs, and his name was Tony Marcella. And Tony Marcella gathered together the Hawaiians that he knew, and he said, I want to find out why are there so few Hawaiians at university and what can be done about it. You know, and when I was doing my PhD at the time, and I think there were maybe 5 Hawaiians at PhDs, and you know, so it was kind of unusual. And I was sitting in this council room with him, and I thought, is he telling the truth? Does he really want to know this? And he did. He wanted to know. So he paid for Hawaiians to come from different places. Pua Kanahele was on that. Edith Mackenzie was on it. Oh God, we had so many people that were coming together from the different campuses to talk about this. And we were dreaming our dreams. So what we said was, we need to have more classes about things that Hawaiians want to learn about our ancestors, about our culture, about our language. We need to have more of those classes. And we need to have more Hawaiians who are professors to be teaching. So if we could see the slide number 8, I think, on the screen. This is how many people we had who were Hawaiian. Hawaiians were only 5% of the students at UH Manoa in 1986. We were less than 5% of the faculty. Less than 1% of the faculty. We had no administrators that were Hawaiians. So he wanted to know how we take care of this. We said we need a building, we need to have more support for students, we need to have money for students to go to school, but more than that, we need to make sure that their minds are fed. So more classes in things Hawaiian, more positions to hire Hawaiians to teach those kinds of things, a building that could serve as a home for all Hawaiians at Manoa. That's what we have now with Kamakakua Kalani, and we're growing. We sing Hawaiian programs all across campus. But it really started with Tony Marcella telling us that, and then he gave us 4 positions. And he said, write a report. So when we did the report and we said all the things we wanted to do, including having a whole department for research and then a whole department to serve the community, things we haven't been able to do yet, it made us think, wow, this is really going to move forward. And then it kind of didn't for a while. We got the 4 positions, and that's about all we got.
What was UH Manoa like in this time? This is late 80s into the 90s. What was happening at UH Manoa during that time?
Well, we were trying to organize. For the 4 Hawaiians that were there, we were organizing. Keikuni Blaisdell was one, Hanani K was another, myself.
Kamakaku, ethnic studies.
Yeah, ethnic studies, you know. So we were trying to get more Hawaiians to come on, and we were getting young Hawaiians who were at the university to go out and bring in their cousins and their friends and everybody and say, come to school, come to university. So that was really kind of a wonderful time. Our motto was education for the nation. You know, how do we bring the Hawaiian nation up through education? So that was good. And it took a while for things to change. So we established our program, and we started writing new courses, and we started offering new things, and we had more students. It just didn't change that quickly.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, the work continued, right, into the 90s. And then in 2001, something happened that really started, if we look at the institutional memory of the University of Hawaii at Manoa, something shifted in terms of the way Hawaiians began to interface with administration. Can you talk about that, please?
Well, in 2001, we were getting a new president, President Evan Dobell. And we'd had President Mortimer for quite a long time, and he had been trying to fix the budget and take care of things, but there was no money for anything Hawaiian. So for quite a while, there were no new positions, no new nothing coming up. So when we heard that there was going to be a new president, I contacted the Hawaiians I knew on campus, and I said, hey, let's go greet him. let's take him a plan. Let's form a council and do something, and go and see him. And so we did. We formed a council, the Kuali'i Council, and then we got together and we said, what do we need, and what can we ask him for, and what do we think? So we went to see him. We bought him presents. Brought him lays and videos and books and everything. We said, here's all the history of our people. That was in March. By the time he came back in June, he'd read everything and he looked at everything, and he realized there was a social justice issue here. And coming from the East Coast, he was used to social justice issues. He didn't realize that that wasn't the cool thing to do in Hawaii by some people's ideas. You know, he just thought, oh, this is a good idea, let's do this. So we were asked to bless his office.
That's right.
And we blessed his
That was a great
office. And everybody came with leis and everything. We blessed his office. Kuali'i chanted. We all chanted. And at the end of that, then we gave him a budget request for $1.5 million.
And was this a normal thing that Hawaiians did before this?
No. Actually, I had told everybody to bring their budget requests in, and I was the only one who had a budget. So I didn't know everybody didn't know how to do budget, and I was director at the time of Hawaiian Studies. Mm-hmm. So I gave him the budget requests to say, thank you, we blessed your office now, can you? But in 2 weeks' time, he gave us $1.5 million. And so he said, this is all the money I have. He was very clear about it. Mm-hmm. But it allowed us then to start hiring people in temporary positions. We got a position, we hired Kahi Brooks in our position to be council administrator. We started using money to bring the Puko'a Council, that is, the other campuses heard about. They said, wait a minute, this is the president. He's giving money to Manoa. And I said, well, we got to share it. So we did. We shared it out. Yeah.
So what I hear you saying is that in 2001, when Kuali'i Council was formed, this is the first time that collectively Native Hawaiians are having a conversation directly with administration. Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We'd had a few conversations with President Simone, 2 presidents before. He told us we couldn't have a building because we're the new kids on the block. Mm-hmm. Then Auntie Gladys Brandt stepped in, who was the chair of the Board of Regents. She supported us, and we finally got a building. And that was part of the Ka'u Task Force, right, report. But we didn't have anything else happen. And then comes time with Dobell. He could really see that a little bit of money, I mean, $1 million sounds like a lot of money, but it's really not compared to the budget of the university, which is like $500 million. So, okay, and we had to learn how to be very good at justifying budgets. Mm-hmm. So, Manu Ka'iyama from business taught us how to do a budget justification, and we started doing budgets and budget justifications, and we taught everybody how to do it. And then we called a meeting of folks we knew from all the campuses to make a system-wide council. Joe Bell supported that. He paid for people to fly in, and we had a retreat for that. So I think that was wonderful, you know.
What is the story of how Kuali'i got its name?
Well, we didn't know what to call it, but Kuali'i was a chief of Oahu, and he was really good at administration as well as warfare and political action. He had to fight his way to power. He comes from a very high lineage, was born in Kailua, fought his way to power, and once he came to power, he dedicated himself to peace. So we thought that was a wonderful name for the council, and people talked about it, and they kind of liked it, so it stuck. Yeah, that's how it started. Yeah.
That's great. Kuali'i, I wonder if, as the current administrator for Kuali'i and Puko'a councils, if you could give us a little more information about the mission, the values, the membership, and how the social justice initiatives are supported, and what some of the vision and everything of Kuali'i Council is
so
today.
maybe if we could show slide number 9. And so that one, the mission of Kuali'i Council is to honor, empower, and advance Native Hawaiian people, culture and language through excellence in higher education. The Kuali'i Council is self-determining in all matters relating to Native Hawaiian teaching, research, publication, and service. And this is we feel like that this is the essence of who we are, and this is where we want to go. We also, we have values that we think is really important that will guide how we shape our decision-making skills and how to bring all of the different programs and Hawaiians here at Manoa to really start to implement and really feel these values and make it a part of them. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of them. One was Kulana Pa'a, and that's pretty much our operating principles of Kuali'i. And basically, this one particular value says, Nana I Vale Mua I Keala Mahope Aku Mako Na Poki'i. And this relates to he or she first cleared the path, and then we, the younger ones, followed. I think that's an important value for us, because I think how we transmit knowledge and how we, share that information from one generation to the next. This is important because it's that kind of relationship between the kumu and the haumana. And Kuali'i Council, because we're having various programs throughout, embedded throughout the different campuses, you have that kumu and haumana relationship. So this is we think it's an important value. Another value that I wanted to share was relating to this, e hana mua a pa'a ke kahua, ma mua ke a'o ana, aku ia ha'i, and this refers to, or translation, build yourself a firm foundation before teaching others. So these are just a couple of values that we operate under as a council, because we think that, if we don't have cultural values, then I think our meetings will be chaotic. I think what we stand for as a council will also be chaotic. So these cultural values will always guide us. I think
cultural identity is really the heart of self-determination. So
Absolutely.
Building that collective consciousness and also the respect for all generations, those that came before us as well as those come after, is so much a part of who we are.
And another thing that, just to follow up on your the issue of membership, so Kuali'i is open to all. We do have active as well as associate members that want to join us. And really the eligibility of the membership is really, it's open to all Native Hawaiians associated with the University of Hawaii. So faculty, staff, adjunct, administration, and students who support our mission can become members of Kuali'i Council. We even have non-Hawaiians who want to support our mission. They're also invited to come and be members of our council. So I think, because we have this charter and it's been approved by the University of Hawaii here at Manoa, and it's part of the organizational chart as we sit as an advisory body to the Chancellor, and we're always going to advise him, and sometimes we're going to even advocate for positions or other requests that relate to Native Hawaiian programs, services, and initiatives.
Great. Yeah, I know that over 20 programs have benefited from advocacy, and because Kuali'i is related to Puko'a, which has councils on all of the other 9 campuses, it's really reorganized the UH system into a system that works for Native Hawaiians in every community. Mahalo. So Kuali'i is now 15 years old, and there's lots of accomplishments. What are some of the highlights and what are the ways in which the councils work together?
I think one of the most important things is we, as Kuali'i, is a sub-council to Puko'a Council. So all of the 10 campuses have their own councils, and this is recognized by the Board of Regents, as well as each of their councils having a clear lines of communication with their respective campus leadership. And I think that's really important, because when we're part of that advisory, having advisory power, sharing with the Chancellor some of our concerns, some of the events that we're planning to create and initiate and develop, I think that really shows our commitment, not only to our individual campus, but as all the campus councils are working together to do these similar types of events and workshops, et cetera, we're empowering the whole system. And I think that's really, really critical. So the mere fact that each council, have their own autonomy, but yet when we actually get together, which is generally about 4 times a year, as Puko'a Council, then we would be advising the president as well as his system administration relating to Native Hawaiian programs, services, and initiatives. And I think that clear lines of communication are really paramount, especially for Native Hawaiians. We also feel that, as far as an accomplishment, we think that we have the opportunity to present and organize our budgets. So we have been very, successful in trying to work and to ensure that we enhance and expand all of our programs throughout the system.
I know there's hundreds of programs, and that also you're really involved in Puko'a in creating policy and in discussing issues on every campus that may affect all of the other campuses and councils. So I'm just wondering if we want to talk a little bit about the Native Hawaiian programs across the campus. Punihei?
Okay, sure. Actually, before we do that, though, I wanted to ask Dr. Kume'elehiva if you could talk a little bit about, so Kuali'i talked about how campuses have been working with their chancellors, and then Puko'a has been working with the president. Did you want to talk a little bit about what that's looked like in terms of working actually with administrators over time, and how that's been successful or not?
Yeah, I'd like to honor those folks in the administration who helped us, who have aloha for us, who still today have aloha for us, even though, at the university over time we've seen a lot of presidents and chancellors come and go.
Sure.
But I wondered if we could put up the picture of President Dobell, because I want to honor him. He caught a lot of heat for supporting Native Hawaiians and Native Hawaiian programs, and he kept talking about how there was a wrong done. And I just really aloha him. He actually planted a tree at Kamakakua Kalani. He had his son plant a tree, so we would always remember him, Ohi Alehua tree, to honor the idea that Hawaiians are the first people of the land, and so that was good. Now, the other thing that Dobell did is he searched for somebody who understood what are the indigenous people. And the next slide that we have is of Chancellor Englert, Peter Englert, who was, he's actually German, and he had gone to New Zealand, and he was working with Maori. When he became the chancellor here, the Maori brought him with ceremony to us, honoring him because he had done so much good work with them. So when he came here, we did a lot of good work together, actually. Yeah. And I understand recently he's taken a position somewhere else, but after he stopped being chancellor. But I say he was such a good chancellor for us. He really helped us get more resources that we needed. Yeah, he was wonderful. After President Dobell left, we had President McLean. And David McLean, that's a great picture of him. David McLean was such a great president, and he's still here as a professor in business. We were like businessmen. He was great because he found all kind of resources that we didn't think about to help students come to school, to make sure that Native Hawaiians had money to come to school. So I really wanted to honor him for that. And he was very good at thinking long-term about how we could work with different parts of the university. And of course, Linda Johnsrud was his, I wonder if we have her slide up to, was his vice president for academic affairs. And because the boss, the president, said to the vice president, this is what I want you to do, she worked very closely with us in putting up the strategic outcome, but also looking at language in the Board of Regents and in the Regents' policy to support Native Hawaiians. And I just thought, a lot of times you think, well, if they're not Hawaiian, they're not going to support us. But we have people who do support us, who are not Hawaiian. And I have so much aloha for them. I begged him never to stop being president, and he said, oh no, I have to go travel with my wife, so off they went. But he was such a good president, and for Linda Johnsrud, I appreciate her so much that I gave a Hawaiian name to her grandchild. That's how much aloha she had for us and we had for her. So I wish her well. I know she's in Texas near her mo'opuna. Yeah, she was really good. After President McLean, we had President Greenwood. She also was very strong in supporting us getting positions through the Board of Regents to go to the legislature to look at those kinds of things. And we don't always get what we ask for, but the fact that she would support us, that was really wonderful. And she met with us quite frequently. So she took the time to come and hear what Hawaiian concerns were, and that was wonderful.
She also supported the Hale
she supported the Haleola,
which was really good. I mean, and You know, now you have Kakaula with Kualii. They have their own building because of her support.
Yep.
And that was a lot of resources that was allocated for the construction of that building.
Yeah, the deans and chancellors and presidents who have really supported all of the Native Hawaiian programs and the advances that need to be made have been really wonderful. And
I don't want to
Chancellor
forget the last
Apple
one. I want Chancellor
was one
Apple
of
up
them.
there, right? Yeah. Chancellor Apple gave us a lot of support, and you know, he came from the East Coast again, and he really understood immediately that there was a social justice issue, and he didn't have much to give. But he made sure that we met with the deans and we got to meet administrators, and he always met with us to talk about what we could do even with very little money. So I really appreciate all these folks who helped us. I think every time any young person comes to university that we're making a miracle for their lives. I know that for myself, my family, I'm the first person in my family to graduate from high school since the overthrow of the Queen. I got my PhD here, and it was wonderful for our family. I want all Native Hawaiians to feel that they can come and be with us, and that we'll do what we can to support them here at Manoa.
I think too, those the 6 of them really were really instrumental in not only providing the resources, but also Hawaiians were very intuitive to ensure that we can use those resources to expand throughout the system and to develop and create new programs, you know, and have more Hawaiians in these programs that would then become the role models for the future generation of Hawaiians in all of these, you know, schools and colleges. And I think, you know, if we didn't have that, we wouldn't be able to exponentially move our people forward.
You know, I know we're gonna have pretty special shows on it, but I just want to say, having a position in nursing, you've been doing so many fabulous things in nursing, and all those young people that you brought through, we know them, and we see them now, you know, out there in the community. And now we have a Hawaiian engineering program, and all the ones who are Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders coming through in engineering. You know, we want to make sure that we're expanding in STEM, and we can see now we're starting to make inroads in SOAS, and we will have in the next generation so many more young people with all of these, and started very small, but you know, it's growing and it's growing.
It's also, as well as social justice, we know that it's also part of a socioeconomic recovery process. And part of the work that I've done over the years is in recovery from intergenerational trauma. And part of that recovery process means that you have a new experience of life.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that can happen through whole families coming through educational processes. And I know there have been others too, like Virginia Henshaw, who supported Hawaii Nui Akea, and the current administration, you know, is trying to move forward with us and in support of some of the values and some of the initiatives that we have. So we want to welcome everybody in the community to come as students, to come as cultural resource people, to come, you know, with us from the community and invite us into the community, so that we really create an identity here that welcomes welcomes everyone.
Absolutely, and I feel like what I hear you folks saying is that's really the work that Kuali'i has been able to do. When we think about 1986 and the years after that, where it was just a small little teeny tiny amount of faculty in Hawaiian language and Hawaiian studies really representing Hawaiian knowledge and Hawaiian people in the academy here at Manoa, and that what Kuali'i was able to do was to start to collectively bring folks together to advocate for more folks, for more resources to serve Native Hawaiian students and across the University of Hawaii at Manoa campus, to this place now where we're in communication with chancellors on a regular basis. We're in communication with presidents on a regular basis. That didn't happen historically at this university. And I think it's probably unique to a research mainstream institution in Hawaii or across the United States. And so, you know, it's a very, very unique model that I think has been groundbreaking for the way we're able to serve students better, and we're able to really increase the number of programs that serve Native Hawaiians and all students across the campus, right, as we increase success rates in general.
And if we were to add up all of our numbers, it's in the hundreds and thousands now throughout the UH system. And so we want to invite everybody to tune in and watch the Kuali'i Council series so that you can learn more about all of the different programs, the achievements, and the great program activities that are being created.
And I was wondering now, since we're talking about all these different programs, if maybe you could mention a few of the programs that have been getting advocacy help from Kuali'i Council, that have benefited from the advocacy that the folks have been doing in the council for over
Yeah,
15
so
years.
maybe if we could show the slide on Kuali'i Council advocated programs. So I prepared this slide basically to show the different initiatives that are taking place under our advocacy, as well as where the programs are housed in a particular school or college. So maybe just a couple of them. So we have like the Imi Ho'ola program, which is under the John A. Burns School of Medicine. And basically, it's a one-year program to allow Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders the opportunity to go through that 1 year. And if they do pass that, then they're automatically accepted into the School of Medicine, which is really very important because sometimes they might need that extra coursework or extra tutorial or mentoring initiative. We have a very renowned program called Kualii, the Center of Excellence in the William S. Richardson School of Law. They've been they just recently released and published the treatise for Native Hawaiians to understand the legal issues that are here in Hawaii and really provide a lot of legal analysis for us.
Do a lot of work in environmental law.
Absolutely. We just recently got support for the Center for Gifted and Talented Native Hawaiian Children called Napua No'eau. Another one, we also have Haumana Biomedical Research it's within the School of Oceanography and Earth Sciences and Technology. They just recently was under the Pacific Biosciences Research Center. The Lani-Year program in Ikeaopono in the School of Nursing and Dental Hygiene, Hawaiian Business in the Scheidler College of Business. So, I mean, there's so many, programs that we've advocated, and we're just really grateful for those resources so that Native Hawaiians can really excel and thrive here in higher education.
Absolutely. I know the slide on the screen is really, it's actually a good thing. We can almost not fit all the programs on one page anymore that have benefited from the advocacy work of Kuali'i Council, which just means that, at one time we can think about Hawaiians or Hawaiian knowledge as only fitting into Hawaiian language or Hawaiian studies, and yet today we see over 20 programs that are using Hawaiian knowledge in the STEMs, in different social sciences, in law and medicine, in ways we probably didn't imagine it 30 or 40 years ago happening in the academy. Although, of course, we know that ancestrally we were doing all of these things in all of these fields, but over time we've had to remember that, and so we see those these kind of programs popping up in different places where we're using Hawaiian knowledge in all the different fields. Excuse me, but we're also seeing Native Hawaiians go into fields that they did not go into previously before these programs existed, because maybe they didn't feel that they had mentorship there, maybe because they were nervous that no one from their family had ever gone there. But now we see that the numbers have changed so much when these programs exist, and that we're really increasing the success rate of the entire university. We're really increasing the graduation rate of the entire university. And so we can look to the next slide that kind of talks about one of the successes of Kuali'i Council and the programs that we partner with.
So when you compare the data from 1986, when there was hardly any students, any faculty, zero administration, and this next slide, what you really can clearly see is we've gone from just something very minimal 30 years ago to now 14% of students, 3% of faculty, and then we even have 1% in administration. While that number might appear to be low, when you look at data as far as the amount of students, because at one time 30 years ago we have to look, what was the student count then? Was Manoa only at 5,000 or 10,000? Now we're up to over 20,000. So when you look at that kind of number, you're going to see at least about 3,000 students here at Manoa attending UH Manoa, and I think that's really important. And to see more Hawaiians, at the teaching level, really providing a lot of that kind of knowledge base and transmitting, in all of these various fields of study, and even from the administrative level to provide really good leadership. And I think we're seeing this because of that data.
Absolutely.
And so we've come a long way, and we still have a long way to go.
Long way more to go. I wanted to point
striving.
out, if we go back to that last slide, again, we're scrunching it down so that we can kind of get everybody on one page. But we mentioned many of these units, but two that have been really integral in in supporting and growing what we know as a Native Hawaiian place of learning is Kualii Center for Hawaiian Studies and Kuali'i Center for Hawaiian Language. That really has been the backbone, including Kapapalo'i Way and now Native Hawaiian Student Services, kind of the backbone of serving Hawaiians probably the longest, right, in a sense, at the university. And what's been exciting, and I was just having this conversation with someone today, is what's exciting that that is now happening is that the students from many of these programs, Kamakaku and Kawaihuelani in particular, are double majoring in programs that we are listing here across the campus. So we'll find students who are Hawaiian language majors and nursing students. We'll find students who, study Hawaiian studies and are business majors, right? Engineering students who are learning Hawaiian language and Hawaiian studies as well. And so we see this kind of interdisciplinary work that's really been able to happen because of the advocacy work of Kuali'i Council and the growing of programs across the campus. So that's been really important, I think, that helps those numbers increase, the success rates of Native Hawaiians, and that helps each of the programs kind of work collaboratively together for the benefit of students. But the other thing that's been really exciting, especially in the graduate programs, is we see our students from places like nursing, Hawaiian studies, Hawaiian language, going into graduate school. And I think that's something that a lot of families never dreamed their children would be able to do 20 or 30 years ago. And so we see, like you mentioned, Kahuliao, Jabsum, social work, all these places now where students are coming from this really strong foundation in Hawaiian language and Hawaiian studies, for example, and now going to all these different fields and getting advanced degrees and getting better pay when we talk about recovery from socioeconomic issues and challenges in the past. And so when we think about those numbers again, we are growing our own faculty, right? And so now we're preparing even more folks. I know I'm an example of that. I'm one of many that have now been able to come through Hawaiian Immersion, come through the university system, earn a PhD, and now be able to work at the university. And so that's a beautiful model, I think, that I really want to thank all of you for your work on, because that's the model of Kuali'i Council. That's the model of growing our own, believing in our own traditions and knowledge, and then sharing that with everybody. And we don't just do it for just Hawaiians, we do it for everybody to really grow the collective success of Hawaii.
Yeah. I want to point out that in Hawaiian Studies, at Kamakakuokalani, we have 2,700 students a year. And most of them are actually non-Hawaiian. So there are lots of Hawaiian students who want to learn about Hawaiian culture, understand what is Hawaiian history, understand some Hawaiian language, and they come to us. We're running about 850 to 900 students through our 100 level class every semester. And so we're spreading that knowledge of the ancestors throughout to everybody, not just for Hawaiians, but to everybody. So that's kind of a fun thing to do. It's kind of cool, and we get such great response from students. They're so happy that they were able to learn about these kinds of things and understand something about Hawaiian culture. And a lot of them then become Hawaiian Studies majors. They're not Hawaiian, they become Hawaiian Studies majors because they're, wow, this is really, really interesting. Or they'll go into Hawaiian language because it is such a beautiful language. So we've got 2,000 students a year in Hawaiian language. Actually, in Hawaii Nui Akea, we have 4,700 students a year. That's bigger than some of the campuses,
Right.
Just one program. So Manoa has a lot of opportunity for growth. I wonder if we could look at that slide number 17 again, please. It shows our current statistics, because I want to just speak to that. We're looking at 14% of the students here at Manoa are Hawaiian. Now, Hawaiians are 25% of the local population, but more than that, we're 40% of the DOE students. So that number 14%, if we were to take our students who are coming through from the DOE, we would see more than 30 or 40% of the students might be Hawaiian here at Manoa, and learning all different kinds of things, because we're actually a very growing population. We're the fastest growing population as Native Hawaiians. Yay! So, but now we have to make sure we have space to educate everybody. Yeah, ho'olulahui, and to celebrate the indigenous culture of this land, which has so many beautiful things to share with the world. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's a great time to be Hawaiian.
It is. It's very inspiring. And we also, at the School of Nursing, we work in the College of Health Sciences and Social Welfare. And within that, medicine and nursing and public health and social work and law and business and Hawaii Nui Akea, the new School of Hawaiian Knowledge, all work together. So like Punihei was saying, there's so much of an interdisciplinary meeting of people, and the disciplines themselves begin to grow because of the exchanges and the overlaps and the dovetailing and the understanding that then becomes kind of like a synchronicity.
Yeah.
And I know George Helms said, you know, the defense of the nation is in the spirit of the people. So by lifting the spirit of the people, we're able to move forward in a way that is actually healing us from some of the traumas of historical traumas of our past.
Absolutely. If folks are interested in learning more about Kuali'i Council or programs related to Kuali'i Council, is it okay if they contact you?
Yes, absolutely. So we have a slide in there. So
That slide.
that's the last slide. And so if
Yeah, we
anyone want to obtain any more information, they can feel free to contact me.
Okay.
So my number, as well as my email here. We do hope more people would love to, who are interested in getting involved in the council's work. And even, you know, sometimes, you know, by watching this type of venue and TV series, we might get somebody, Hawaiians that might be in a different field that is not on the list, and that might be interested in creating another initiative.
Absolutely.
And then that we can build again. So I think that's important because, you know, we need to hear from you. So
If we
again,
get 500 doctors, 500 nurses, 500 farmers, 500 canoe builders, 500 taro farmers and other people, we will rebuild our nation through people. And I think that's one of the things that we all share the vision for, is that self-determination is partly what we ourselves do, how we move forward, as well as the acknowledgement of our right to do that, of self-determination itself.
I would like to say that one of the things that's inspired all of us for many years, and I know that everyone at this table agrees, is the love of our ancestor that is the land. That the Earth Mother, Haumea, all the beautiful lands of Hawaii, all the food that we can grow in her, all of the sustenance that she gives us, really is one of the most important things that we can think about and that we can do. And that's the beauty of Kuali'i. He was really good at organizing administration of the land. So the Kuali'i Council, we're working for the people, we're working for our Hawaii, and we're working to malama our Hawaii. It's good. It's good fun.
Yeah.
We want more people to join us. Yes, please.
So tune in, and more programs will be shown from month to month. And we're very happy to share what we've been able to achieve, as well as to invite you to come and contribute more. Mahalo.
Mahalo.
Mahalo. Thank you.